anytime Anderson Silva fights, and this has been true for a meaningful period of time, but there's something special there. There's something that you don't want to miss. I do feel as though that's getting even stronger, okay? This guy's my mortal enemy. Is enemy a word, Clay? We should probably read. This guy's my mortal enemy. But it doesn't mean I don't appreciate the hell out of what he does. My goodness, and there's also something very nostalgic. Every time Anderson fights, it could be his last fight. He has said that himself, and he has many times said, I want my last fight to be in Brazil. Well, this fight happens to be in Brazil. And it happens to be a tough fight. And so many people think with a loss, he's going to go out. Guys, he's just as likely to go out with a win. Now, I do not predict for you this is his last fight. I'm just sharing for you my own feeling of you can't miss that. Because it could be. And one of these times it will be. And it might be this time. I will tell you two things about this fight, though. There is no part of me that is on the bandwagon of Anderson Silva needs to stop. Anderson Silva clock has ticked and time has expired. I don't know where that comes from. If I go back and look at his most recent fight, it happened to be with the greatest talent currently in the sport, Israel Adesanya. 2 of the 3 judges gave Anderson 1 of the 3 rounds. So of 3 rounds with the greatest to have done it, who happens to be a reigning world champion, Anderson won 1 of those rounds. I also saw it the same way those other 2 judges did. The second round. Watched that fight. I was there live in Australia, and I go, Anderson won that round. So to then make believe that he's somewhere at the end of the rope when he's winning rounds against the world champion? Man, I don't know where that narrative comes from. Also need to look at his fight, Jared Cannonier. I know Jared Cannonier because I was in Madison Square Garden November 3rd of last year, I believe, was the night that DC fought Derek Lewis, to use another reference for you guys. Weidman fought Jacare, but Cannonier got put on that card to go in there against David Branch on no notice. I might want to say 10 days, 12 days, definitely less than 2 weeks. David Branch, absolute hammer. Cannonier goes out there, okay? He gets to the weigh-ins, he takes his shirt off. We'll go, oh my God, this guy's not in shape. This guy wasn't ready? You'll be kidding me. This guy looks like a Greek god. Looks like he's carved out of clay. Goes out there, fights David Branch toe-to-toe, on their feet, knocks out Branch in the stand-up. Big upset. Bigger upset when you understand, 1, it's the Garden, and 2, he wasn't supposed to be there. So this guy's not playing around. And I offer you guys that because so many times fighters will go into an atmosphere where when they take on a guy who has a lesser name, it is perceived to be a lesser fight. Therefore, if Anderson is to stub his toe and lose this contest, it will add to the false narrative that never should have been created in the first place that his time is done. I will tell you, as a guy who had his first fight in 1997, I believe I am the longest standing veteran of this sport that still competes at a meaningful level. I believe that I am. I don't know of anybody that's been around since 1997. That is a false narrative. Generally, the top 10 guys will fight fellow top 10 guys. Generally, the champions will fight number 1 contenders. Generally. But that doesn't mean guys 11, 12, 13, and 14, and 15 in the rankings can't be the guy on any given night. You are talking about a game of millimeters. Millimeters. These guys are separated. One guy doesn't get a proper night's sleep the night before, he could lose his spot. Yes, it is that sensitive. One guy warms up in the wrong way. One guy gets his hand wraps put on the wrong way. It could cost him his position. That's how close it is. I share that with you because so many people have said this is a lose-lose situation for Anderson. Should he lose to Cannonier, he's now lost to a guy who is not perceived to be on his level. Should he beat Jared, he's now beaten a guy who he was supposed to beat. Why, I would not resist the phenomenon of that narrative. That is how it works. That is accurate. I would not resist that. I would just question how that ever came along in the first place. I see great competitors go down all the time. I see the best teams in the world. Use the NBA. We got playoffs going on right now. I see the best team in the world that will win the NBA championships throughout the course of the season lose 20 games. And some of them were the bums that didn't even make the playoffs on any given night. anything can happen. And when Anderson is out there doing heavy lifting, and look, the other side of the coin, much as I'm telling you, Jared's a worthy opponent and he's a great and tough guy. No, he is not Israel Adesanya. No, he is not. So it is true that this is a lesser fight than some of the opponents that Anderson has been in there with. That is true. But Anderson has said he wants to fight at home. He said he wants to fight somebody a little lower in the rankings. I don't need number one contender fights every time. I don't need world title fights every single time. Let me go at home. Let me show my skills. Let me have a little bit of fun. There is no gimmies in this business. There is no gimmies in this sport. It's just not done that way. Coker doesn't do things that way. Dana doesn't do things that way. It just isn't done that way in this sport. But I think that Anderson deserves a lot of credit, and I think that you guys are like me. I think that you're going to take this in and appreciate it, knowing sooner or later, and we're closer to later than we are sooner, it's going to be the last time.